Farmers today are facing rising costs, volatile markets, and extreme weather. The Better Way to Farm podcast digs into strategies to help you take control of farm inputs and maximize profit so your farm can thrive for generations. Remember to take advantage of our free resources at abetterwaytofarm.com. Now, from America's Heartland, here's your host.
Things that are different are not the same. That's a quote from my good friend Andrew, who I refer to as my philosopher, and I appreciate that statement. Hey, Rod here to Better Way to Farm, where we increase yields and improve profits. Thank you guys for tuning in. Welcome to today's episode. We appreciate you guys who take part in this, and we try to bring value and bring things for you to think about. Today, we want to talk about things that are different, being not the same. Have you ever wondered why it is that you grab 2 1-pound containers of any product of choice and there's a big difference in price? Have you ever wondered why 2 different tractors of exactly the same horsepower have different prices? Have you ever wondered why it is that 2 bags of seed corn have different prices? No, probably not. On all of those things, you know. You can buy seed that's much cheaper. You can buy seed that's more expensive. You can buy tractors that are stripped way down and don't have as many bells and whistles, and different brands are going to have different prices. And oftentimes people gravitate towards the more expensive one because they're looking for value. Maybe that value is in the resale. Maybe that value is that it doesn't break down as often. Maybe that value is that it'll run harder. Maybe that value is that it'll burn less fuel. But the fact of the matter is, there are differences in value. I see different people out here using different pieces of equipment, different colored planters, different colored sprayers, different colored tractors, and they each one believe that somehow that was the one that was right for them. And I appreciate that. And I'm not here to preach colors, whether it's blue, red, green, orange, or the man in the moon. Whatever is working for you, I'm happy for. As we look forward, though, and we start saying, okay, why is it that some of these things have different values? And then, as I had someone reach out yesterday, basically what he was saying was, when it comes to all fertility products, there is no difference. Guys, that's a statement that makes me tilt my head to the side and say, excuse me, because that defies logic. I am ceaselessly amazed that we know that medicine has had tremendous improvements in the last 20 years. We know that planters have definitely had a lot of improvements in their accuracy and the way that they work in the last 20 years. Technology has changed. We know that global positioning 40 years ago wasn't even a thing, 20 years ago was good, and today is vastly improved. Technology in every area has changed. It amazes me as we trade pickups how you jump from one year just to the next, or maybe 2 years later, and how much better the ride is, how much more equipment is offered with more bells, more whistles, more creature comforts to make things work. So let's dive in and talk about things that are different, things that are not the same, as Andrew would say. Specifically, I had someone reach out to me with some specific questions, and I'm going to answer these in a way that hopefully will make it crystal clear and yet be in a generic method, because I'm not here picking on anybody or anything. But I get questions and they say, okay, why is one micronutrient so much more expensive than the other one? Why is one micronutrient, does the label say we need to use a quart or 2 quarts, and another label say pints? Well, first of all, if the company that is doing that is making the recommendation and they're just saying use a quart of this everywhere, to me, that's a red flag. Why? Why would I use a quart of copper everywhere when I don't even know if I need copper, or maybe I already have high copper levels? I believe that the companies owe it to us to be straightforward and say, hey, we'll be using this based on a soil test. We'll be using this based on a tissue test so that we can get the amount dialed in. But nonetheless, just throw all of that to the wind and say, why are some of the products going to be measured in quarts, the others in pints? Or even maybe why are the products measured in gallons and others in pints? Now we're coming down to quality. Now we're coming down to manufacturing. Now we're coming down to standards and what standards we're being held to. So first and foremost, as we start looking at micronutrients, with the exception of boron, we'll be talking zinc, manganese, magnesium, copper, iron, calcium. We're going to be looking at those saying, what is the chelation rate? Well, first, so what does chelation mean? Chelate is a Greek word that means claw. All it means is we take EDTA for us, and we put a chelator in there, EDTA, and that grabs onto that zinc ion or that manganese ion or whatever nutrient is we're trying to hang on to, and it surrounds it. Just like a claw surrounds something, this chelator surrounds that. And it hangs on to it because if we don't have chelated micronutrients, as soon as they hit the soil, they get tied up. Particularly phosphorus is always looking for something to tie up with. And so if that happens, now we've made more phosphorus unavailable, while simultaneously we have made the nutrient that we were trying to put in unavailable also. So when we start taking a look at how that works, so what are the different chelators? Well, first of all, there's a whole lot of people out here with a whole lot of opinions, and I respect that. And again, not to argue, but let me just say this. What we're looking at is what is the stability constant of the chelator that you're using. When we use EDTA, the stability constant is 16 to 17. When we use citric acid, it's 4. So the question is, what's the difference? Because the citric acid comes apart very quickly. It's a very weak chelator. So we know that one of the changes in cost is going to be how did we chelate it? What did we use? And how's it going to hold together? The second one then is the chelation rate. To quote Ronald Reagan, the scariest words in the English language are, "Hi, I'm from the government and I'm here to help you." So specifically in this instance, what do I mean? Well, what I mean is this. I believe that if I chelate 5% of the zinc in the jug or the tote that I sell you, that I can write chelated zinc on that jug. So what does that mean? That means that 5% of that zinc or that manganese or whatever it is that's in that container is protected and chelated. The other 95 is not. And that means that 95% or 60% or 50% or whatever level they use is going to be unprotected. Then you move into a product like what we use, and we do 100% chelation. Guys, the chelating agent is probably more expensive than the zinc or the manganese or the iron. And the fact of the matter is, if we don't completely chelate it, then it's just a waste. It's an abject waste. And so therefore, one of the easy ways to tell that is to take 2 jugs from 2 competitive companies and compare the weight. Why is that? Because when we have more chelating agent in that gallon of micronutrient, it weighs more. And we've seen those vary by as much as 1.5 pounds per gallon. Guys, that's a significant amount. And when we run into those ones that are light and they're cheap, there is a reason. I once had a man tell me that oats are much cheaper if they've been through the horse. Micronutrients are much cheaper if they're not properly chelated. What's the second thing that we might want to take a look at? Well, we encourage you to go to the Washington State Department of Agriculture website and take a look at all of the different nutrients that you can buy, because if you sell in Washington, they're listed there at the WSDA website. And what they're going to give you, among other things, is you can find the percentage of chelation, I believe. But I also know that you can find, are there contaminants in that? In other words, does the zinc that I'm going to sell you have extra things in it like lead or arsenic or cadmium or mercury? And as a matter of fact, we find that most of the micronutrients that are on the market today are laced with heavy metals. Guys, I actually had someone try to convince one of my clients here about 3 months ago that lead, arsenic, cadmium, and mercury were plant nutrients. They were nutrients that were plant needed. That is just not true. Ladies and gentlemen, when we put lead in the soil, it displaces things like potassium and makes the potassium drop deeper in the soil profile. We know that those heavy metals, lead, arsenic, cadmium, mercury, those disrupt the DNA. There's a reason that we don't want those products coming into our bodies. We do not, under any circumstances, want to ingest lead, arsenic, cadmium, or mercury. We know that they create health problems. We know that they disrupt the DNA in humans. They also disrupt the DNA in the plants. They mess with cell reproduction. And anything we can do to enhance plant growth is good, and anything we do that messes with the plant growth is bad. So that's the second thing that we would take a look at, is to say, hey, what do we got going on here? So what are we doing to the plant? Guys, I just want you to think long and hard about what you're going to do. While we're on the subject of micronutrients, I've said it before, I will say it again. We are not fans of micro packs. I've shared the story before that we had a grower in Ohio who had very high iron levels in his soil. They translated into very high iron levels in his plants, and he put on everything you needed in one jug, and it had multiple micronutrients in it, and one of them was iron. I understand why people put iron in there. You put iron on, it makes your plant get dark green. Man, you get to see visual results. In this particular instance, we tipped the scales too far. We had too much iron in the plant, which is always at the expense of other things, in particular manganese. And this gentleman spent money to cut his yield. Guys, soil test, put on the right micronutrients. Tissue test, foliar feed the right micronutrients. But we are not fans of a shotgun approach. If we use general recommendations, we get general results. And we don't want general results, we want specific results. And we're going to get those from using specific recommendations. And so I would encourage you to do that. I want to flip over and talk about sugar because I had an individual who said, man, I got this other company and they're wanting me to use a gallon of sugar multiple times. And far be it for me to write their recs. Okay? I do know this. Oftentimes I can be quoted as saying an apple a day will keep the doctor away. 30 apples on the first day of the month will make you sicker than a dog. I don't know about this other sugar. I don't know how much active ingredient is in it. I don't know why they're making that recommendation, and I'm not here to say that it's right or it's wrong or it's indifferent. I am here to say this. The sugar that we offer has 3 different forms of sugar in it. It also has fulvic acid. Our recommended rate is 1 pint per acre on multiple trips. And we have people using it in furrow and using it when they spray post-emerge chemicals and when they foliar feed 2 times. And then some of the guys are coming back with it even later in that with another pass. That I will leave up to you. But we believe that 1 pint per trip is far better than 1 gallon at a shot. And we don't see an economic response with our product based on higher rates. To us, everything that you do has got to make you money. You know, one of my taglines is everything that happens in agriculture is good for someone. The question is who? Our goal is that it be good for you. We are adamant that it must be good for the end user, and that is the only thing that truly matters. Everything beyond that is peripheral, and we want to make sure that we do that. So as we start looking at these things, why is it that that sugar costs less per gallon? Why is it that that micronutrient costs less per gallon or per pint or whatever? I've given you some reasons to think about, and I would encourage you, do some research. In particular, research that Washington State Department of Agriculture website. And you can see all the fertilizers that you're using. You can see all of the micronutrients that you're using. And you can look in there and see what is the heavy metal content. And then you can try to figure out how that's going to impact what you're doing. As an added bonus, you might want to think about how's that going to impact your own health and the health of your children who happen to be hanging around and helping you plant and helping you spray. Guys, we are passionate about quality and we are passionate about end results. Those are the 2 things that really drive us. We are passionate about the fact that we want to see your farm get passed on to the next generation and the next generation. And that's why we get up in the morning. That's why we go do what we do, is so that we can continue to spread the message. But guys, we just value the audience and really appreciate the chance to be a little bitty part of your life. If you have further questions about what you want to ask here in regards to some of these things with the micronutrients and the sugars and differentiation between products, you can always reach out to Karen at 641-919-5570 with a text, and she'll be happy to have someone from the team get in touch with you. Guys, we just look forward to you guys having a really safe fall and a tremendous harvest. We pray that you'll be safe and be careful while you're doing that, and we look forward to talking to you really, really soon. Thanks for tuning in, and we hope that you're having a better day.